Jimin in tears, the unspoken truth behind Jungkook's painful rebuke. What really happened on that night? The silence was deafening. The question is piercing. Why did Jungkook, the youngest member of BTS, a man known for his loyalty and devotion to his brothers, break that silence with words heavy enough to bring Jimin to tears? What exactly happened on the night of his 28th birthday that shook not only their friendship but also the unwavering faith of millions of fans who had always believed their bond was indestructible? The shock came swiftly. During a late-night live stream, Jungkook's calm yet trembling words struck like a knife. "I was hoping Jimin would be there." Not an accusation, not an attack, just a truth spoken so softly yet so painfully that the entire fandom froze. The golden magne, usually so careful with his emotions, allowed disappointment to spill into the open. And the name he mentioned was Jimin, the very person fans believed he trusted the most. Why did Jungkook speak out? Why did his voice sound so broken? And why did Jimin, upon hearing this, break down in tears? To understand this moment, one must return to that fateful night. Jungkook's 28th birthday was supposed to be filled with laughter, music, and the kind of brotherhood BTS has displayed for over a decade. Instead, it turned into a night defined by absence. Jungkook prepared a small, intimate gathering, not the glamorous spectacle one might expect from a global superstar, but something deeply personal. He wanted presence, not extravagance. He wanted his brothers, not the world. As the hours passed, his anticipation turned into quiet despair.
No RM, no Jin, no Suga.
No J-Hope, and most painfully, no Jimin. The only one who arrived was Taehyung, who canceled his own commitments to show up. He came bearing a simple cake, a small light in an otherwise dim evening. Yet even as they sat together, Jungkook's eyes reportedly wandered toward the door, each time hoping it might open, each time realizing it would not. When he whispered, "I thought they would come," the words were less about anger and more about heartbreak, but it was not the absence of the group as a whole that hurt the most. It was Jimin. For years, Jungkook had described Jimin as the one who understood him best. Through the sleepless nights of trainee days, through the harsh spotlight of fame, Jimin had been there. They were inseparable, the 97-liners whose friendship was often described as brotherhood beyond words. That bond was supposed to be unshakable. Yet, on the night Jungkook needed him most, Jimin did not come. Why? That is the question that continues to ignite speculation and stir emotions. Was it an unavoidable schedule? Was it exhaustion? Was it miscommunication? Or was it something deeper, something unspoken between the two? When Jungkook finally voiced his disappointment, he did not generalize. He did not speak of the group as a whole. He spoke of Jimin specifically. That focus revealed not bitterness, but vulnerability. It was not about the celebration. It was about presence. It was about trust. The reaction was immediate. Fans flooded social media, torn between shock and sorrow. Some defended Jimin, pointing out that his recent absence from public activities suggested overwhelming work or personal struggles. Others expressed heartbreak at Jungkook's words, noting that he rarely expresses disappointment so openly. But when the one person he counted on the most did not arrive, the wound became too deep to hide, and Jimin's response. According to those close to the situation, he cried upon realizing the depth of Jungkook's hurt. It was not a matter of defending himself, but of facing a painful truth. Sometimes, absence speaks louder than presence. For Jimin, who has always been seen as Jungkook's protector, confidant, and closest friend, this revelation was devastating. His tears were not just of regret, but of recognition that he had failed to be there in a moment that mattered most. The symbolism of this incident cannot be ignored. Birthdays in BTS history have always been more than dates on a calendar. They have been milestones of solidarity, where each member poured time and affection into showing one another how deeply they cared. Fans recall past years when Jimin wrote heartfelt letters to Jungkook, When Jin cooked for him, when J-Hope wrapped him in warmth, when RM gave thoughtful gifts, when Suga masked affection with humor, and when Taeyong stood silently by his side, his gaze enough to say, "You are my brother." This year was different. This year, there was silence. Why does this silence matter so much? Because it challenges the very image that has defined BTS for more than a decade: unity. The group has endured unimaginable pressure, personal struggles, and the heavy demands of global fame, yet their strength has always been their bond. For Jungkook to reveal a crack in that bond publicly was nothing short of seismic. Fans described it as hearing the sound of glass breaking. Something once believed to be unbreakable suddenly showed its fragility. Still, the narrative is not one of betrayal, but of human vulnerability. Jungkook's disappointment was not laced with anger, but with longing. He longed for Jimin's presence, his comfort, his laughter. He longed for the bond they once displayed so effortlessly. That longing, spoken aloud, was enough to bring Jimin to tears. And in those tears lies the undeniable truth. Even the strongest friendships can falter when presence is replaced by absence. The aftermath of this moment is complex. Fans are left with questions. Did Jimin reach out privately afterward? Did Jungkook accept his apology if there was one? Can their bond be restored to what it once was? Or has this night permanently altered it? No answers have been given, and perhaps none will be. But the emotional weight of Jungkook's words and Jimin's tears will not be forgotten soon. As speculation continues, one fact remains clear. The incident has left a permanent mark on the BTS narrative. Not because it suggests a breakup, not because it undermines their unity, but because it reveals something more profound. BTS, despite their global image, are human. They feel disappointment. They feel hurt. They cry. And sometimes, even among the closest of friends, silence can wound more deeply than words. Jungkook's 28th birthday the haunting question lingers still. Why didn't Jimin come? Was it circumstance, miscommunication, or something deeper? Only time will reveal the truth. But one thing is certain. In the history of BTS, this moment will stand as a reminder that even the strongest bonds can tremble. And sometimes, the tears of one member and the disappointment of another reveal more about love, loyalty, and vulnerability than any celebration ever could. The shockwaves from Jungkook's quiet confession did not remain confined to his late-night live stream. Within minutes, the words, "I was hoping Jimin would be there," became a global trend. Social media timelines turned into open forums of grief, anger, and confusion. Fans from every continent expressed disbelief, while others admitted they had rewatched the clip repeatedly, trying to analyze Jungkook's tone, his expression, his pauses, anything that might provide clarity. The pain was palpable. Some armies described feeling betrayed, as though the bond they had admired for years was suddenly fragile. Others defended Jimin fiercely, arguing that absence does not erase years of loyalty and sacrifice. Yet the one fact that none could deny was the rawness of Jungkook's disappointment. This was not a scripted moment. This was not performance. This was a glimpse of unfiltered humanity that cut deeper than any stage performance ever could. Fan forums lit up with speculation. Was Jimin working on an undisclosed project that prevented his attendance? Was there an unspoken misunderstanding between the two? Could it be that pressure from individual careers had quietly eroded the closeness fans once witnessed daily? Each theory carried weight, yet none could fully explain the image of Jungkook sitting in silence on his birthday, his words trembling with hurt, and Jimin later reduced to tears upon realizing the consequence of his absence. The emotional divide was mirrored in the fandom. For some, the moment was devastating because it shattered the illusion of perfection. BTS had long been celebrated as more than colleagues, more than friends. They were brothers. But brothers fight. Brothers hurt one another. Brothers, too, can fail to show up when it matters. This reality, though painful, made BTS more human than ever before. For others, the heartbreak came not from the truth itself, but from the fact that it had to be spoken aloud. They questioned why Jungkook felt compelled to reveal such vulnerability publicly, knowing it would inevitably cast Jimin in a harsh light. As days passed, the debate intensified. Analysts of K-pop culture weighed in, suggesting that such cracks in unity were inevitable after years of relentless pressure and schedules that rarely allow for personal moments. Yet the symbolism of Jimin's absence remained the focal point. Among all the members, his presence had always carried special meaning for Jungkook. The two had a shared history that transcended the stage. Nights of doubt, shared meals when money was scarce, long conversations about fear and ambition, laughter in the face of hardship. To miss that night was not simply to miss a birthday. It was to miss a moment of reaffirmation that their bond remained unshaken. Jimin's tears, reported by those close to him, only deepened the story. His sorrow suggested recognition, not ignorance. He understood the weight of his absence. He understood why Jungkook singled him out. And in that understanding lay the most heartbreaking truth. Love and loyalty are not measured by grand gestures, but by showing up when it matters most. Fans have since revisited old clips of the two, moments where Jungkook leaned on Jimin for strength, where Jimin comforted him with a simple embrace. These memories now carry a bittersweet weight, as though they were foreshadowing the pain of separation that unfolded on Jungkook's 28th birthday. Still, hope persists. Many believe that bonds forged in hardship are not easily broken, that the very tears shed by Jimin may serve as the beginning of healing, not the end of trust. And the wider narrative of BTS, this incident will not fade quickly. It will be remembered as the night when silence spoke louder than words, when absence cut deeper than confrontation, and when the golden magne revealed that even the strongest among us can feel abandoned. Yet it will also stand as a reminder that vulnerability is not weakness. Jungkook's courage to speak and Jimin's tears in response are proof that their connection is real, imperfect, and painfully human. The final question remains unresolved. Will they recover? No fan, no analyst, no observer can answer that. The revelation of Jungkook's disappointment and Jimin's tears has left millions of fans speechless. Yet beyond the emotions, a deeper question now arises. How much of this narrative reflects undeniable reality, and how much could be a product of speculation, exaggeration, or even fabrication designed to capture attention? When we hear Jungkook's words, "I was hoping Jimin would be there," do we accept them as irrefutable evidence of fractured brotherhood, or do we pause to consider whether what has been reported truly represents the full truth? Should we not, as responsible readers and critical thinkers, ask ourselves, are we witnessing reality or consuming a carefully amplified storyline born in the echo chambers of social media? The facts, as presented, are clear on the surface. Jungkook celebrated his 28th birthday in a private, intimate setting. He expected the presence of those closest to him. Only Taeyong arrived. Jimin, whose bond with Jungkook had been described as unshakable, was absent. Jungkook spoke about his disappointment during a late-night live stream, and his words reached fans across the globe. Reports surfaced that Jimin, upon hearing this, broke down in tears. This is the narrative that has dominated Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and countless media outlets. But can we, with absolute certainty, claim that every detail is accurate? Or are we consuming fragments of truth woven together with assumptions, interpretations, and sensationalism? Let us examine the sources of this story. Much of the discussion originated from clips shared on TikTok, trending hashtags on Twitter, reaction videos on YouTube, and commentaries from secondary media platforms. These are platforms where information spreads rapidly, often stripped of context, magnified by emotion, and distorted by repetition. How many of us pause to ask whether the original live stream was edited, whether Jungkook's tone was correctly interpreted, or whether Jimin's tears were ever captured firsthand? Did we verify the reliability of these claims? Or did we allow ourselves to be swept away by the tidal wave of collective interpretation? Consider the dynamics of fandom culture. ARMY is one of the most powerful and passionate fan communities in the world. Every gesture, every glance, every silence of BTS members is dissected, magnified, and infused with meaning. Could it be that Jungkook's quiet disappointment, spoken with vulnerability, has been inflated into a narrative of betrayal and heartbreak beyond what he intended? Did Jungkook truly rebuke Jimin, or was he merely expressing the universal pain of feeling alone on an important day? And Jimin, did he indeed cry because of guilt and regret? Or is this detail another layer added by those desperate to shape the story into a tragedy that grips the heart? These questions are not meant to dismiss the emotions fans felt. They are meant to ask whether emotions alone are sufficient grounds for truth. How many times have viral stories on social media turned out to be exaggerated, misinterpreted, or outright false? How many times have narratives been constructed not to inform, but to provoke reaction? Are we, in our eagerness to feel close to BTS, unconsciously complicit in turning fragments of reality into melodramas that may not exist as we imagine? It is important to remember the machinery of modern media. Sensationalism drives engagement. Emotional headlines, dramatic retellings, and exaggerated conflicts generate clicks, views, and shares. When we read, "Jimin in tears after Jungkook's rebuke," are we reading a fact verified by direct testimony, or reflect for a moment on the power of absence itself? Jungkook's disappointment was rooted not in confrontation but in silence. Silence can be interpreted in countless ways. Did Jimin fail him deliberately, or was it simply circumstance, an unavoidable schedule, exhaustion, or even illness? Absence is not always neglect. Yet once framed by media, absence becomes a statement, a wound, a betrayal. Are we guilty of turning silence into a weapon through the stories we tell and share? Furthermore, we must confront the possibility of hoax. Could this entire chain of events, Jungkook's supposed words, Jimin's alleged tears, be exaggerated or even fabricated by online communities seeking attention? How many of the articles and posts we consume include first-hand verification? How many are based on anonymous sources close to the group? How many are merely retellings of retellings, each layer adding more drama than the last? At what point does speculation harden into truth simply because it has been repeated often enough? And then, there is the role of the fans themselves. ARMY is both the guardian and the amplifier of BTS's legacy. But are fans always able to separate loyalty from objectivity? In defending Jimin, do some fans dismiss Jungkook's vulnerability? In sympathizing with Jungkook, do others paint Jimin unfairly as careless or negligent? When fandom divides into camps, is the truth lost in the noise of emotion? Shouldn't we ask whether our interpretations, no matter how well-intentioned, sometimes do more harm than good to the very people we claim to protect? At the heart of this reflection lies a profound dilemma. On one hand, the narrative of Jungkook's disappointment and Jimin's tears resonates because it feels deeply human. It speaks to loneliness, to the pain of unmet expectations, to the fragility of even the strongest friendships. On the other hand, the lack of verified detail forces us to confront the possibility that we are engaging with a story more imagined than real, shaped by the machinery of social media and the hunger for drama. Which of these is true? Or are both true at once? That there was a seed of reality, nurtured into a forest of speculation. This leads us to the most difficult question of all. What responsibility do we, as consumers of media, carry in shaping the story? By retweeting, reposting, commenting, and speculating, do we participate in constructing a reality that may not exist? Do we, in our hunger for closeness to BTS, unintentionally turn their lives into performances staged for our consumption, where every silence is suspicion and every tear is a headline? Are we capable of resisting the temptation of easy narratives, Or have we become addicted to the drama of parasocial intimacy? The incident of Jungkook's birthday, Jimin's absence, and the subsequent storm of emotion may or may not represent the whole truth. What it certainly represents, however, is the power of narrative in the digital age. Whether fact or fabrication, this story has forced millions to reflect on loyalty, disappointment, and vulnerability. But beyond reflection, it must also force us to question our own role. Do we want to be informed citizens, carefully separating fact from speculation, or do we want to remain consumers of stories designed to keep us emotional, reactive, and engaged at all costs? So we end with questions, not answers. Do you truly believe Jungkook's rebuke of Jimin unfolded exactly as told? Or do you suspect exaggeration, distortion, perhaps even invention? Was this a moment of raw truth, or a carefully magnified drama designed to capture our attention? Most importantly, when the next story arrives, equally emotional, equally dramatic, will you question it, analyze it, and verify it, or will you simply believe it because it makes you feel? Perhaps the most haunting element of this entire narrative is not the uncertainty of what truly transpired, but what it reveals about us as observers. The bond between Jungkook and Jimin has long been celebrated as unbreakable, and when that image is challenged, even by something as simple as absence, our instinct is to dramatize, to demand answers, to fill silence with speculation. Yet in doing so, we may be overlooking the simplest truth. Even those who seem inseparable can falter, not out of malice, but out of circumstance. Friendships are not destroyed in a single night, nor are they defined by one missed event. Jungkook's words carried pain, and Jimin's reported tears carried regret. But pain and regret are not the same as rupture. They are part of what it means to love deeply, to hurt when expectations aren't met, to cry when you feel you've let someone down. If anything, this moment strips away the illusion of perfection and replaces it with something far more meaningful. Humanity. Maybe the real story is not about betrayal or fracture, but about vulnerability made visible. Jungkook spoke, Jimin wept, and in between, millions of us were reminded that idols are not untouchable figures, but people whose bonds, like ours, are tested by time, distance, and silence. The question that lingers then is not what really happened that night, but what do we choose to believe and why?